After 9 practices of LSU fall camp, I have one big conclusion about the LSU defense. I'll share it with you next. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe up. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. It gets me every time. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. LSU lands another defensive line transfer. I have some big picture thoughts on this. That's coming up later. Is there a new starter on the defensive side of the ball for LSU? We'll get there. But I told you I have one big overarching takeaway about this LSU defense right now. There are 9 practices into fall camp. The media has been allowed to see parts of 7 of those 9 practices, and I've been to all of them. And my one big takeaway for this defense right now is that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I'm going to dive deeper and explain what I mean. But we all know what that saying means, right? Take a vehicle, for example. If you disassemble a vehicle and sell every part of it, it's not going to be as valuable as an assembled vehicle new on the lot. Makes sense. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And with LSU's defense, it has been so striking watching this team in individual periods, because it's been that overwhelmingly bad, almost embarrassing at times. When we walk into practice Saturday, for example, we walk into practice and the offense is running a goal line drill against the defense. And what it was either a 2 or 3 receiver set. That's what we saw. So if you think of it this way, quarterback, there's either 2 or 3 receivers, 2 or 3 defensive backs. There's no line, there's no pass rush, there's no linebackers, there's no safety help, there's nothing. It's just at the 10-yard line and they're running drills. And I went through this with you, and it was overwhelming in favor of the offense. If you go listen to my Saturday practice report, if you missed that episode, the offense won 13 reps. The defense got 3 stops. There were 3 plays where the receivers were open. The quarterbacks made errant throws. The offense scored 7 straight touchdowns, and 9 of 10. The only one they missed was a throw by Colin Hurley in the dirt. The offensive and defensive line pass rush drills, 22 wins for the offense, 3 for the defense, 5 pushes. Even if you gave each of those pushes to the defense, it was still 22-8 in favor of the offense. And then they went into the team period, and I shared this with you if you caught the Saturday practice report. They go into the team period, and this is how the sequence played out. Mason Taylor, 9-yard out route. It's 2nd and 1, sack. Now it's 3rd and 6. Garrett Nussmeier's pressured. He's looking for C.J. Daniels down the left sideline. Bad throw. It's picked off by Jair Brown. They move him back. Say, instead of starting a new series of downs, let's play 3rd down over. Throws a pass over the middle to C.J. Daniels for 35 yards. It's 1st down. On 1st and 10, great coverage by Sage Ryan on Kyron Lacey. It's incomplete. 2nd and 10. They run the ball for 5 yards with Caleb Jackson. It's 3rd and 5. Harold Perkins, boom, TFL. 4th and 10, they run a check down to Caleb Jackson, who just trucked Whit Weeks. Got the 1st down. 1st and 10, Major Burns, tackle for loss. It's 2nd and 11. They force a throwaway. Great pressure by JVR Suggs and West Weeks. 3rd and 11, they're looking on the sideline for C.J. Daniels. Overthrown, Jair Brown in coverage. It's 4th and 11. They kick a field goal. Point is, despite how awful they played in individual drills, when it came to 11 on 11, the defense won the day. They got an interception and then forced a field goal. Look at Monday. We go out there to Monday's practice, similar. First thing we see are the wide receiver DB reps. I charted 25 reps. The defense had 2 pass breakups, 2. Ashton Stamps had a PBU guarding CJ Daniels. Jordan Gilbert had a pass breakup guarding Aaron Anderson. That was it. There were 2 overthrown, and there was a drop. Jelani Watkins had a ball in his hands, dime from Ricky Collins. Just dropped a walk-in touchdown. Then we go into 11 on 11. And they're in shells, so no full pads. So helmet, shoulder pads, padded girdles. So it's a thud. They're not tackling to the ground. Here was the 11 on 11 sequence. Again, offense the defense couldn't cover anybody in the team, in the individual drills. They go to team, here's what happens. Starting at the 30-yard line, going the length of the field, so 70 yards ahead of you. Refs on the field and everything. First down, great coverage by Jordan Gilbert on Mason Taylor on the left sideline. Incomplete, 2nd and 10. They run across to Chris Hilton. He gains 7 yards. It's 3rd and 3. Nuss being pressured, good coverage. He has to step up, throws a high pass over the middle intended for Kyron Lacey. Throws a 50-50 ball. Jordan Allen jumps up, makes contact as the ball is getting there, forces the incompletion. It's 4th and 3. The offense is going for it. Parashan bats the ball at the line of scrimmage and intercepts it. I mean, that in and of itself in a vacuum isn't a crazy sequence, but when you spend an hour watching a team in one side of the ball get their head kicked in individual drills, then they come together as 11 and they're getting stops and pass breakups and deflected passes and interceptions and sacks and TFLs. It's crazy. The second unit went out there. Zy Alexander, nice coverage on Shelton Sampson forces an incomplete pass. 2nd and 10. Aaron Anderson for 5 yards over the middle. It's 3rd and 5. They look for Kamorian Pimpton on the left sideline. He catches it, but doesn't get to the sticks. Rookie mistake. So now it's 4th and 1. They go deep down the left side to Shelton Sampson, and he had the ball in his hands, but Zy Alexander made a nice recovery and knocked the ball away. 4th and turnover on downs. At this point, they're escorting us off the field. The ones go back in. And I look back and I see one more play. Harold Perkins beats Garrett Dellinger for a sack. I mean, I'm not telling you this defense is the 85 Bears. I'm not telling you they're going to be a top 10 defense. I'm not telling you they're even going to be a really good defense. What I'm telling you is, individually, Paris Shand isn't going to win a pass rush rep against Will Campbell. If Kyron Lacey is in space in a one-on-one drill against any of LSU's cornerbacks, Kyron Lacey is going to win 99 times out of 100. There are so many one-for-one talent mismatches that favor the offense. So when you go into these individual periods, they're skewed toward the offense, and the offense is winning abundantly because they're way more talented. It's not my opinion. I mean, you got 2 first-round pick offensive tackles. You got a guy like Kyron Lacey and CJ Daniels who are probably going to be either day 1 or 2 picks in this year's draft. Garrett Nussmeier is a potential draft pick. Mason Taylor might be the best tight end in college football. There was one ESPN article we referenced last week that has him projected to be the best tight end and potential first-round pick. Like, you're more talented on offense, period. Not even a question. But what Blake Baker is doing on this defense right now, very clearly, is simplifying, because you don't see coverage busts at all. He is simplifying, which is allowing this defense to play fast and free and physical. The energy around the defense is good, and that is a total reflection of Blake Baker and his energy. There was a play at practice on Monday where there was good coverage on the sideline. Nuss sailed one into the sideline, and Baker, it went into Blake Baker's hands. He dropped it, and because he dropped the interception, he dropped down and started doing push-ups. The whole crowd, the whole defensive side of the ball is going crazy. It's a different energy on the defensive side of the ball. And look, I just ran through a sequence that was 1, 2, 3, 4. There was 5 plays. Another one from Saturday where I ran through a first and a second team where there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 play drive that netted a field goal. Like, as a defense, you may see 75, 80 snaps a game from the defense. You may get worn down, or from the offense. You may get worn down. There may be depth issues. You're going to give up big plays. Like, I'm not telling you this is representative of what's going to happen throughout the entire game, throughout the entire year. What I am telling you is, while the defense lacks talent to compare to really good offenses and spots, they're being coached in a way right now that maximizes the guys they do have on the field. And when they play together as 11, And Garrett Nussmeier has to step up in the pocket because pressure's coming. And he has to throw into a tight window because they're playing bracketed coverage. And the level of difficulty escalates. The defense is winning plenty. And it's been really encouraging to see if they can keep it up. There were a few other practice notes from Monday that I want to share with you. So I'll get to that as we continue here. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Man, I love sports, and I know you do too. I love them so much. The Olympics are over. Of course, as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. The sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets you and me keep the sports going whenever we want, all summer long. All we got to do, open up the app, dream up bets anytime we're in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus every day. That's right. Something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. We tell you every day, bet $5, new customers, bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Of course, Dinger Tuesdays, $5 in bonus bets for every home run. You can check that out at FanDuel. And of course, a 30% profit boost on MLB same game parlays. So many great boosts and bonus. Why wouldn't you take advantage of them? It's at FanDuel. So head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. I want to get back to my practice notes here from Monday, and I'll get to that in just a quick second. I'll remind you, always appreciate you making Locked on LSU your first listen of the day. For your second listen, be sure to enjoy Locked on College Football. Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. Discussions on the upcoming season, the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, transfer portal, NIL, all that stuff. Locked on College Football available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. So a few notes from practice outside of my one big takeaway. On Saturday, we told you Gio Paez, the Wisconsin defensive line transfer, was absent. And initially at practice on Monday, during the individual drills, we did not see Paez, but then he did show up about midway through the media viewing. So Gio Paez was back and was running with the ones back in his spot opposite Jacoby and Guillory. As we mentioned also on Saturday, both Braden Swinson and Jalen Lee returned on Saturday. With Paez out, Lee was running first-team defensive tackle. Today, Paez took his spot back. And Swinson was part of some interesting defensive alignments. This was one of the really curious things that we saw as Blake Baker is starting now into the second full week of fall camp. Blake Baker's starting to explore a little bit. So, for example, whenever LSU went into a scout period, so it was the first defense against a scout offense where they could look they could look at their alignment. We saw a really fun probably a pass rush alignment. So Savion Jones kicked inside. The defensive tackles came off the field. Savion Jones kicked inside. Braden Swinson was the left end. Parashan was the right end. So you had those three down linemen. And then Harold Perkins stepped up to the line of scrimmage on the left side. So when Perkins, Swinson, Jones, Shand across the front, basically like one of those NASCAR speed rush packages. Whit Weeks was the only off-ball linebacker. You had Major Burns in his star position. Jair Brown went on the field as the nickel. That's one other takeaway, is that Jair Brown wears number 17. He's the Ohio State transfer. He's the starting nickel. When LSU goes 5 defensive backs, Jair Brown is the nickel that comes onto the field. And this was one other interesting change. When they went to this speed rush package, they also changed one of the cornerback spots. So Sage Ryan stayed at his left corner spot, but J.K. Johnson, the other Ohio State transfer who transferred in a year ago, was injured in fall camp, missed all of last season. J.K. Johnson replaced Ashton Stamps. Now, every time we see team drills and every time we see 7-on-7s, your starting cornerbacks are Sage Ryan and Ashton Stamps. And Ashton Stamps even met with the media after practice on Monday. And I think Ashton Stamps is going to be the starter opposite Sage Ryan whenever LSU opens up against USC. I think those are your starting cornerbacks. And Jair Brown's your starting nickel. But it was interesting because whenever they made this change with this sort of speed package, J.K. Johnson was the next on the field. And the reason sometimes that's interesting is you learn pecking order, right? So they clearly like Jair Brown a lot. He's playing that nickel, and that probably suits him well being in the slot. I don't know how well Jair Brown plays boundary corner, but clearly, while we've been very high on PJ Woodland, this is pretty indicative that J.K. Johnson at boundary corner is actually next in line, not P.J. Woodland. So we'll continue to see that evolve. And your safeties continue to be Jordan Gilbert and Jordan Allen. I will be most interested, and we've talked about this plenty, but I will be most interested to see if and when Zy Alexander is healthy from that torn ACL, because right now he's running third team as he keeps getting more comfortable. Do we see Zy Alexander reassume the starting cornerback spot? And if so, does Sage Ryan kick back to safety and Jordan Allen go to the bench? I think that is the likely domino effect. If Zy Alexander gets healthy enough, returns to form, and becomes a starter again, I think then you're comfortable moving Sage Ryan back to his natural spot at safety with Jordan Gilbert. And then you have a really veteran defensive backfield if it plays out that way. So just another thing worth keeping an eye on. A few other notes from Monday's practice. Xavier Thomas, who Brian Kelly told us last week, he'd been practicing with the wrap on his leg. Brian Kelly told us Xavier had a bit of a tweaked hamstring, nothing serious, but there was no sense in rushing him out there and rushing him back until he was ready to go. Well, Xavier Thomas was back participating fully as your kick returner, your punt returner, as a slot receiver. Xavier Thomas wearing number 0, and he is explosive and fun to watch, and he was out there, which was good to see. So just some of the personnel news, notes, and tidbits that we saw. We also saw on Monday another special teams period and a 7-on-7 period. The special teams period was the punt team, and we continue to see this battle rage here between Peyton Todd and Blake Oxendorf. Oxendorf, of course, the Louisiana Tech transfer punter who was all conference at Tech last year. And you just continue to see inconsistency. Brian Kelly actually watched this period, this punt team period. He stood right there by Bob Diaco watching this punting period. And look, I mean, there was good and there was bad. We saw Blake Oxendorf shank one. We saw Peyton Todd drop a snap. But then we also saw Oxendorf boom one that went 60 yards in the air. It was incredibly impressive to watch. Like when he's actually gets a hold of it and it's consistent, it's impressive. But right now, consistency has been the issue on defense and certainly with the punters as well. So Tigers back on the practice field on Tuesday. Monday was the first of 6 consecutive days of work. They had the recovery day on Sunday, and now Monday was the first of 6 consecutive days of work. The media can watch Tuesday, Wednesday, no media availability Thursday, Friday, and then we get to watch again on Saturday when we hope we'll get to see them scrimmage again as the Tigers keep inching closer to that season opener against USC out in Las Vegas. Okay, that was the Monday practice report. But Monday afternoon, Brian Kelly and the Tigers picked up another commitment for the class of 2025. I want to talk about him next. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Brian Kelly, Blake Baker, and Bo Davis landed another commitment for the class of 2025 on Monday. It's Dilan Battle, who's a defensive lineman out of Arlington, Texas. The quick thumbnail on Dilan Battle is that he's 6'3", 300 pounds, big kid. He is a 3-star, number 569 nationally in the composite, the 53rd best defensive lineman, and the 82nd best player in Texas. I often say I'm less interested in the rank, the star rating, the star ranking, the rating, all that stuff, than I am the offer list. Who do you have offers from? And Dilan Battle, while his commitment came down to LSU, SMU, TCU, Arkansas, he had offers from a whole lot of schools: Cal, Alabama, Texas A&M, Texas, the in-state schools, Michigan, Southern Cal, Penn State, Oregon, Auburn, Miami, Oklahoma, Missouri, Florida, Oklahoma State, Colorado, Ohio State. A lot of big-time offers there. But even still, maybe a guy like Dilan Battle comes to, over his senior year, grows, develops, pops off, comes to LSU and is ready to be a contributor as a freshman. Now, I think that's atypical. I don't think the expectation should be to see freshmen be contributors on the line of scrimmage. Will Campbell and Emory Jones were outliers. Dom McKinley might be a rotational player, but again, that's an outlier. But I think when you look at Dilan Battle, it's another example of how building a roster now is changing in college football. Here's what I mean. Remember, you're going next year from 85 to 105 scholarship players. Now, follow me here. I don't mean to, I don't math very well, and I don't want to throw out a bunch of numbers. I know, especially from an audio standpoint for those watching us, math doesn't necessarily play very well. Numbers don't play very well. But just follow me here. I'm going to try to break this down as easily as I can to make it make sense. So you got 85 guys on the roster, and they might be at 84. Mac Markway left. Maybe they gave a scholarship. Just follow me. Let's just say they got 85. Well, look at the players this year that are going to be out of eligibility. Guys like Kyron Lacey and Thomas Crawford and Miles Frazier, Jacobian Guillory, all these fifth-year seniors. You got graduate players like C.J. Daniels, John Emery, Josh Williams, Blake Oxendorf, Gio Paez. Let's use round numbers, okay? Let's say you're losing 10 scholarship players to eligibility. Last year, 14 players entered the transfer portal after the 2023 season. Let's just use that number. I don't know how many they'll lose next year, but let's just use that number. So 10 out of eligibility, 14 to the portal, and then early entries to the draft: Campbell, Jones, Mason Taylor, Harold Perkins, let's say 4. So that's 28. You're losing, let's say, 28 scholarship players off of this year's team. Well, if you're at 85 and you go less 28, right? Now you're talking about 57 thereabout players. Well, on an 85-man roster limit, you needed to go find yourself 28 players. Now, if you got, let's use a round number. Now, if you got 60, you don't need 25. You need 45 players. Because remember, you're adding 20 scholarship players. Now, some of those might be walk-ons currently that you award a scholarship to. We see that often. Like a guy like Giovanni Peterson, for example, who plays tight end. He's on LSU's punt team. He's on LSU's kickoff team. He's going to be a blocking tight end. That's a guy that was a walk-on who's carved out a contributing role on this team. So, and maybe he's on scholarship now. I don't know. But he wasn't signed as a scholarship. He wasn't an initial counter at 25, if you know what I mean. But anyway, if you're at 60 and you got to go to 105, that means you have to add 45 scholarship players. You're going to add guys in the portal, but we know Brian Kelly wants to add more from the high school ranks and supplement with the portal. All that to say, in a given class, you may sign 25, 27 high school players. Now you may sign 40 high school players. You may sign 35, whatever that number may be. But your high school classes are going to dramatically increase. So it's either that or you're going to increase the number of portal guys that you take. But I'm guessing with the way Brian Kelly has said repeatedly how he wants to build a roster, it's build through the high school ranks, supplement with the transfer portal. He wants to recruit high school guys, coach, and develop them. Well, it's very hard to do in this day and age in college football because guys leave with the transfer portal. I mean, you recruited Walker Howard. He left after a year. You recruited Lance Hurd. He left after a year. You recruited Jaylen Brown. He left after a year. You recruited Kai Preon. Left after a year. Like, that's going to happen. You're going to lose some guys. But, in past eras, and I've given you this example before, guys like Foster Moreau and Russell Gage and Lloyd Cushenberry and Justin Jefferson, guys that were marginal takes, right? When you had a roster limit of 85 and a hard cap in a class of 25, meaning you could only sign 25 players. Well, a lot of times we got to see on signing day who we get. We got a hat on the table for this 5-star, this 4-star. And if we get them, we won't have a spot. But if we don't, we'll have a spot for you. We'll take you. So a lot of those decisions came down to signing day. Well, now, and sometimes you took them and sometimes you didn't. Well, now you don't have to worry about that. Now you can say to a guy like Dilan Battle, hey, I don't know that I'm going to play you as a freshman, but we love your potential, your upside. We want you to come here. And instead of going to UTSA for 2 years and playing and then transferring into our program, we can take you now and get you in our weight program with our coaches and our strength staff. And you can learn our culture and our practice schedule and be integrated into the fabric of our program and grow up here and develop here. And then when it's your time, you're ready. And that's what Brian Kelly has said he wanted all along. Now, I don't know that every coach in college football is going to thrive with that structure, but it's the thing that Brian Kelly wants to do, which is why this increased scholarship restriction, the roster number, I think benefits Brian Kelly, because you can go to a Destrehan and a kid like Jace Thomas, who's a 3-star playing safety, might play corner, but you love his size, you love his athleticism, you think he's a prospect on the come, probably not ready to play as a freshman, but he's a kid from Louisiana who would give his left arm to play at LSU. He's not going to transfer. He's going to wait his turn and play like Lloyd Cushenberry did, like Russell Gage did. And you can build a roster with guys like that from this state. You can take every 3-star in this state that you want to take from now on. And a guy like Dilan Battle, who's from Texas, who Bo Davis was recruiting to Texas. Well, Bo Davis comes here, and you find a spot for him here. I think taking Dilan Battle is another illustration of how roster building and roster numbers are changing across college football. And I think it's going to benefit a school like LSU because of how Brian Kelly wants to build his roster. We'll learn more about Dilan Battle as we move along, of course, but LSU now at 22 commitments now for the class of 2025. And boy, they just continue to climb. Third nationally in the composite ranking, and still with a lot of big-time prospects out there and plenty more room to grow. But this class isn't going to be there at 22. They're not going to be done at 25 or 27. You better believe they're going to get into the 30s in this class, maybe the middle 30s. But just another way the college football landscape continues to change. We'll be following it here every single day on Locked on LSU. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked on LSU your first listen today. Now, go check out Locked on College Football. NIL deals to the never-ending conference realignment rumors. My buddy Spencer McLaughlin's get you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. It's Locked on College Football. You can find the link in the description of this podcast, so you don't even need to go search for it. It's part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, thanks so much for being here. Please smash that like button if you're on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. If you're on podcast, please subscribe, rate us, leave a review. Let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.